Hello and a very warm welcome to this special interview on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. I have a truly special guest with me on the program, a gentleman who needs no introduction. In summary, he is the senior most leader of the BJP and he is also a senior leader in the NDA government. He is a Minister of Finance and also, of course, he dons several other hats. It is in this context that I would like to speak and welcome on the program Mr. Arun Jaitley and talk to him about the upcoming elections and what it means for the party and also for the general public. Mr. Jaitley, to begin with, I'd like to ask you, how different is the India of 2019 from the India of 2014? And what is it that you'd like to take to the people if you come to power?
I think the fundamental difference is 14 was an election where people exasperated with corruption, policy paralysis, lack of leadership, expressed hope. It was an election of hope. But 2019, they see a reality. And therefore, between this period, what has happened? For the first time in history, we became the fastest growing economy. We became a country with a clean government. We became a government which had the leadership to take difficult decisions. Our performance, whether it's the economy or it is the infrastructure or it is service of the poor or on vital issues like national security, was hugely different from any predecessor government. And therefore, India today believes it's my time to catch up. All the industrial revolutions bypassed us. Today, if I can sustain this position for 10, 15, 20 years as a fastest or fast-growing economy, I see myself becoming a developed economy. Can a chaotic coalition do it for me? Or can a party with a single majority and allies as a part of the government to represent Indian federalism under a strong leader do it? And therefore, as against hope, this is an election of aspiration and of reality. It's an election where they are going to reaffirm their faith in the existing leader. They've tried him, they've tested him, and they find nobody else who measures up to him. And that's why it's going to be different.
Achhe Din was one of your famous slogans of 2014.
Yeah.
Have the Achhe Din come? Because several members from the opposition believe to say
Forget
that the
it.
Achhe Din never came.
You see, they increased taxes. We didn't increase a single tax, we reduced them. Isn't it a better day? We build 10,000 kilometers of national highway. Isn't it Achhe Din? From 38%, we have connected every household in a village with a toilet, with electricity, with cooking gas. Every poor man will get a house. 50 crore people get free hospitalization. The fastest growing economy. You had the most corrupt government in history, and you've had an extremely honest government. This is certainly as good as it can be.
You know, you checkmated the UPA 1 and UPA 2 with your anti-corruption plank, and you delivered really as far as several of your promises are concerned. Most of the boxes in your manifesto can be tick-marked. But yet you seem to have changed the narrative this time around. You're speaking less about development, you're speaking less about what you've delivered to the common man.
I'll tell you, if you ask me in the term of priorities, we can interchange priorities depending on which state, etc. This election, on the face of it, also becomes like a mandate on Mr. Modi. It's like a presidential or a prime ministerial direct election. And nothing wrong in it, because if people have confidence in a leader, and then they compare others who relatively dwarf in comparison. This is an election about the developmental program of the government, the management of the economy and the country, and the anti-poverty measures which we have taken. This is an election, thirdly, we have demonstrated India can be have an honest government. And the fourth big issue is on national security. They called us right wing. But we are right on national security. And they are in the wrong. Whether it is the Maoist in JNU or in Chhattisgarh, or it is the terrorist in Kashmir, we will use every power available with the government to make sure that nobody ever succeeds in breaking India or creating a disruption here. And if I put these as the four big issues, then the fifth big issue is, what is the choice? What is the alternative? There is no coalition. The Mahagathbandhan has evaporated. On 50% of the seats, they are at each other's throat. And the other states, they have very little hope of winning too many seats. There is no clarity on leadership. All those fake press conferences and commonality of bites, we'll have a common minimum program, none of them is there. So a possible struggle for leadership, a khichdi as we've had 5 experiences of this. And lastly, people know they want a government for 5 years which will deliver, because this is their chance to cover up. We are on the cusp of history. Certainly not a government for 6 months.
You know, you spoke about the 4 big achievements, and you spoke about, and national security was number 4 when you're listing it out.
No, it was not in priority. I've just, this is a way of putting it.
But you seem to be leading with that, and you seem to be playing on the insecurity really of the common man.
I'll tell you, I'm leading for this because currently, when the government took some monumental actions, surgical strikes, the air strikes, they were planning a huge conspiracy against India to destabilize us by multiple attacks. And our Air Force, they need to be saluted, acted with precision. The Prime Minister allowed them. And I think it's a fact that everybody must be proud of. The anti-satellite missile, what a powerful deterrent it is. You have the nuclear on one hand and the anti-satellite missile. We are a peace-loving country. We don't use this, but we need the deterrence. So if a government has strengthened national security to this extent and the country is stronger, every Indian is happy. But I think the opposition, earlier they used to link fight against terror with vote banks. Now they link it to their diminishing poll prospects. Well, they will lose even without national security as an issue.
Talking about national security, how much of a resonance do you think it has down south?
Huge. Huge because India was exasperated, India was fed up. Every Indian used to say, if Israel can do an Entebbe, if the US can do an Abbottabad, why don't we have the facility? But ultimately, what was surgical strikes and air strikes? It's an operation as good, if not better.
Talking about the surgical strikes and the Air Force, is Rafale the new political Bofors?
I think even the man who manufactured falsehood has stopped talking about it. But they've been slapped at all levels. The court said there is nothing wrong. The CAG said nothing wrong. The data is visible. And like an obstinate schoolboy, he says, well, the Supreme Court may have said so, the CAG may have said so, but I don't agree. Well, if you don't agree, the country won't agree with you.
You know, you spoke about how the people of this country want a stable government at the center, want to give the BJP another 5 years, a fresh mandate. But does the arithmetic add up? Because if you look at...
These arithmetics are all arguments of the past. Caste equations are all arguments of the past. India's socio-economic profile of the population has changed. It can have a marginal effect somewhere, but that's about all. Why did all the dynastic parties lose in 2014? Why did all the caste-based parties lose in 2014? Because the parties did not realize that India has changed. Why did the BSP get 0 in Lok Sabha and only 19 in the Assembly? Because people want more than merely caste.
If I may, Mr. Jaitley, if you look at the numbers, really. You know, the BJP seem to have peaked in the states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Uttar Pradesh, and the Hindi heartland in 2014.
Well, this was always said of Sachin Tendulkar, this was said of Virat Kohli, this was even said of Don Bradman. But then all records are set only to be broken.
All right, all records are set to be broken is what you're suggesting. But if you, because I'm from South India, so I want to concentrate a little bit on.
Okay, please don't go into this arithmetic. These are all, the whole chemistry is changing. You'll be surprised at what's happened in the Northeast. We didn't win much. Bengal, Orissa, and when you say South, Karnataka, partly now urban centers of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, the alliance in Tamil Nadu, and let me tell you, our vote will have an exponential jump in Kerala, in Odisha, in Bengal. These are the states we never had a base. We had to be satisfied with 3% and 2%. And therefore, the Tripura experiment from never an MLA to a 3/4 majority government, that's the pace at which are going. And that's why I gave you the cricket example.
You know, you spoke about states like Kerala, West Bengal, Tripura, and so on and so forth. All these states really bastions of the left. So the space being ceded by the left, is that what the BJP is occupying?
Tripura, we occupied it. West Bengal, we've occupied it. We'll significantly occupy it as far as Kerala is concerned. You see, ever since the left is contesting separately from Congress in both Tripura, West Bengal and Kerala. But over the last 5 years, the left has been the ideologue of the Congress. And therefore, there is a loss of identity. I see in this election the strength of the left deplete and deplete to a new low.
Let's talk about the state of the economy now, because there seems to be a paradoxical situation really as far as India's growth story is concerned. On one hand, you know, we seem to be the bright spot. Several international agencies are saying India is whom we should be looking forward to. But on the other hand, there are several reports and data that suggest that jobs are not being created.
See, these are all, I'll tell you, some data are deliberately made. And some data have to be processed at various stages. Is it possible? The best data is the empirical evidence. You build 10,000 kilometers of highway, well, a job has not been created. It just dropped from the moon. Your real estate sector grew by 10.4%. It just happened without creating a job. 17 crore people took money under Mudra loan and not one got a job. They didn't embezzle it, they paid back the monies, most of them. Rural infrastructure, the fastest growing, you see, economy. And the best empirical evidence I always suggest is, if there were no jobs, there will be social discontent. We are the only 5-year government in history which has not faced a single major agitation or movement.
That having been said, Mr. Jaitley, are the right kind of jobs being created? Are our people being skilled to the level that they should be?
You see, yes, they are. If you see the kind of entrepreneurship which is taking place in India, go to the colleges, go to the exponential increase in the private universities, go to the kind of quality of youngsters, look at the huge growth of India's neo-middle class. Today, surnames and families are mattering only in 2 or 3 political parties. They're not mattering in the field. And therefore, not only are the right jobs being created, then they said, oh, wages didn't increase. Minimum wages we increased by 42%. 7th pay commission we implemented within 3 months. For 20 years there was stagnation in those health workers and Anganwadi Asha. We increased it by 50%. Each one of these categories we've given a raise. And therefore, when the economy is strong, your ability to percolate it down. Well, the economy expanded at the fastest rate. So the Rajya Sabha TV, instead of 1 channel, is now running 4 channels, but surprisingly the number of jobs have gone down. It's as absurd an argument as that.
Right. So you spoke about growth. You know, the December growth figures that we got of 6.6%.
There was a little, yes, you're right. I do believe, 1 was the base effect. 2, because after demonetization, in the 3rd quarter of the previous year, the growth started peaking up third and fourth. And therefore, if the base is higher, the growth above it is slightly lower. Secondly, the global growth has slowed down. So it impacts everybody across the world. There's a third reason. The third quarter was also preceded by a debate, which I had as far as the RBI was concerned. There was both shortage of credit and liquidity. And the government had a different opinion from that of the Reserve Bank. And we had publicly expressed it and I had said that if the Reserve Bank doesn't liberalize both credit and liquidity, growth will suffer. And I do feel that it partly impacted the growth.
You spoke about global economic slowdown. Clearly, China has slowed down already.
You see, the new normals have changed. China's new normal, they said, is 6.5%. Now people believe it may be 6 or 5 point something. But that's all right. I do believe that India still has a lot of catching up to do. Look at gender. Our women still have to get into, in a big number, in formal employment. Look at Eastern India. A lot has to happen. Look at rural India. In terms of growth and infrastructure, a lot has to happen. So we have enough on our plate to keep us busy for the next 10, 15 years. So and therefore, when you spend on these areas, your growth is going to pick up.
So as the global economy slows down, does that pose an opportunity for India?
It does. I don't know. It impacts us because if the global growth slows down, FDI reduces. If the money in the buyer's pocket goes down, then your exports go down. So that also impacts us adversely. But we have a huge market within. And one of the factors which is going to dominate the world over the next few decades is this amazingly increasing size of India's middle class and its purchasing power. We have enough of it to keep us busy and keep us going.
So how are we safeguarding against this global economic slowdown? Because there are several reports coming out of the
US. Therefore, your domestic policy has to think in terms of programs. When the East Asian crisis took place and Asia slowed down, Mr. Vajpayee conceived the National Highways Program. Therefore, you will have to bring out new instruments of growth. And I've indicated 3 of you to you just now.
You know, you spoke about being weary of certain things in your previous answer. You know, one thing that the world is weary of and one thing that is, going to take the world by storm is 5G technology, and Huawei is in the center of it. Is that something that should concern us? Because the world seems...
Obviously, you see, technology is going to have a great impact on the lives in future. Artificial intelligence will have it, communications will have it, and all modern instruments of communication will have it. And therefore, India has to keep up. Fortunately, in the last 2-3 decades, as India's socio-economic profile is changing, our people have shown a natural aptitude for technology. So we are not technology averse.
Let's talk about inflation. Now, the inflation has been, under check really as far as your government is concerned. That's something that has been managed very well over the last 5 years. But has that come at a cost? Because food prices, that's a problem area.
There is a problem, and therefore, if food prices go down, so the farmers get less. And therefore, the answer is that either the prices go up, and you can afford a little bit more on the inflation side to compensate the farmer. Instead of 2.5, it's 3 or 3.2. It won't make much of a difference because wages also increase correspondingly every year with that. But more important is, then from your earnings, you have to give that kind of adequate support to the farmer. So all the investment we are making in infrastructure in rural India and the support to the farmer by MSP, by income support growth, state governments in many states are also doing it, is really intended to take care of that.
But that also poses another problem. What happens to our fiscal, our fisc really? Because on the one hand, you have state governments doling out farmer loan waivers. On the other hand, you have the PM Kisan scheme.
I think the 14th Finance Commission should have considered. You couldn't have made it 32 to 42 so that every state starts giving sagan on a wedding. Some states say, I'll give a gold ornament or raw gold. These are not really intended to be subsidized. I don't know how much it gets you the votes. But it was meant for really servicing the poor and for a better infrastructure so that the state's life could be a little better. But that having happened, as far as the center is concerned, I've been very particular, and I say this without fear of contradiction. 14 to 19 has been the best macro economic assessment as far as India is concerned.
There's no doubt about that.
Since independence, the fisc has come down, inflation has remained under control, the CAD has remained under control, foreign exchange has been comfortable, currency has been fairly stable, and I don't think I have much of a worry. You see, my biggest worry is, will the fisc be 0.1 this side or this side? And that's something which is within an affordable range.
And you spoke about how this government has not seen an agitation against it. But if you look at the agri side, there have been several farmer protests across the country.
I'll tell you, the farmer protests have been from some ultra-left organizations, mostly. They are political in nature. The farmer protest, for example, pension for farmers is a big demand. But we are the ones who've come out with a pension scheme for the unorganized sector that covers farmers. For the first time in India, 10 crore unorganized people, which includes labor and farmers. We can expand the number also. We'll clarify it once again. We've already given it. You make a contributory scheme. From the day you start, you make a small contribution, we'll make an equal contribution, and you'll get 3,000. And as affordabilities improve, wages improve, government revenues improve, you can probably expand it further.
You know, as the finance minister of this country, you've done several things. Is there some unfinished business that you'd like to see being addressed?
I think, you see, GST, IBC, putting the whole income tax faceless as far as these people are concerned, I think these are great things we've done. The Monetary Policy Committee we've constituted. The Aadhaar has been a great success. I have a feeling that there is a lot more to be done. And if I had more money, what are the 4 areas I'll spend it on? The first pie will go to national security. There are 7-8 lakh crores of equipment waiting to be bought. So you have to gradually put in about 1 lakh of crores extra every year, so that over 6-7 years you cover up the backlog. We've done very well as far as healthcare is concerned by coming out with Ayushman. I think education is the other sector which needs the resource. The 4th will go to infrastructure, further expedite. I think railways is a case which easily can be modernized. But our aviation is growing, our ports are growing. The 2 areas in infrastructure which needs to grow is our power is surplus, railways, and state transports in a terrible shape. Public transport in the states. And the 4th area would be whatever we put into the villages, if you were able to put in something significantly more. So if I had more resources, these are the 4 priority sectors.
So would this be your economic policy blueprint if you come back to power?
Well, this is my idea. Ultimately, the government collectively has to look into it.
And, you know, it's election season, so we have to talk about, you know, the elections and what the people really want. The first phase is just almost upon us. It will happen in a few days from now. So what is it that the people really expect?
I think the people expect stability. The people want growth. They want their aspirations to be filled up. They want to be a part of that growth story. They want poverty to be alleviated, and they want a strong India and a secure India. And the last thing they want is a 6-month government where leaders squabble for the #1 slot with no program. We've had 5 experiences of that, and each of the 5 is a frightening scenario.
And in the days to come, Mr. Jaitley, what is the agenda and the focus of the BJP going to be? Development or identity politics?
Well, I think this identity politics is a branding which people did. Where is the talk of identity politics today? You see, if you speak of the development, it's the most secular program in the world, because irrespective of religion or caste, you get it. If it's national security, irrespective of religion or caste, you get it. If it's a strong India, everybody benefits. So where is the question of, and if it is linked to national security, you can't call it identity politics.
And one final question before I let you go, Mr. Jaitley. So if the BJP comes back to power, what is it that you're going to focus on?
Well, I think since it will be a continuing government, we'll carry this trend of an honest, decisive, strong government, development-oriented, clean government, and good steps on national security.
Sabke saath, sabka vikas.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, Mr. Jaitley, an honor and a pleasure really to have you on the show and have you on Rajya Sabha television. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on this telecast. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time.